show. Today, you'll hear from mental and physical health care professionals from Family and Children's Services, right here in Oklahoma. We'll spend the next hour talking about the topics that are important to you. From anxiety and depression to vitality and wellness, you'll get the information you need about the issues that you face every day. Call us with your questions at 918-856-3873, and we'll answer them live, real time, right here on KBOB 89.9 FM and live streaming worldwide at KBOB899.com. Now, let's welcome your host for the next hour.
Hey, good afternoon. Adam Andreasen here. So happy to be here guest hosting. I'm the CEO of Family and Children's Services, and every week we come together and we talk about everything mental health. And I'm really excited to introduce a special guest today, somebody I just met, Dr. Matthias Wicks. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here to talk about this great topic, so thank you.
And I got to say, Bobby, it's so great to see you here today as well. I haven't seen you for a minute, but I'm feeling a little left out because you all look really sharp. It seems like you both got the memo,
We
and
got
no one
the
sent
memo.
it to me.
Yes, we did, man. And I'm glad. Hey, me and Matthias, we got the same shirt on.
Same shirt on.
Same color.
And we've already been having a good conversation this morning, and we're going to go in a lot of different directions. But Matthias, first of all, just a little bit about yourself, because I literally just met you last week. We were at an event, and I immediately knew you were someone I wanted to visit with today. So thank you for joining us on short notice and preempting your golf scramble this morning to join us. And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Again, thank you for having me, both of you. I will preface the day with our burgundy shirts. This is probably one of the best golf games I had. So the guys I played with, we play Scrabble. It's a good day because at least 3 of my shots were able to be played off. So
they used 3 of your shots, so it's already a win.
Yes, I only lost 3 balls in the water, so it was a good day. So no, but I'm so glad to be here. Matthias Wicks, originally from Cleveland, Ohio, outskirts of Lorain, Ohio, but just outside of Cleveland, Lorain County. Born and raised, mom and dad raised 9 sons. I'm number 8 of 9 sons.
9 sons.
Yes.
You're number 8?
I'm number 8.
Almost a baby.
Almost a baby. When the baby came in, I lost my privileges when he came in. So, but it's such an honor to be raised by my parents, and in this case, actually being also raised by my older brothers, who are all my brothers are doing well, doing great work.
So all of you are boys?
Yeah, all boys.
No sisters?
No sisters.
Oh, wow.
So that's why we love our female cousins, our nieces, our daughters, granddaughters, great-granddaughters, daughter-in-law. So the ladies in the Wicks family are very well loved and protected. It was just an honor being raised with my dad, who had passed. It's been a year now, April 1st. And it was such an honor to be raised by a man with such caliber as he has. I say has because to me it still lives on. So I moved from Ohio to Tulsa, where I went to college at Oral Roberts University.
When did you move to Tulsa?
In '88.
Okay.
And I ran track out there, college track. Before graduating, I started pursuing law enforcement, applying for a Tulsa Police Department my senior year. Got on the police department in '92. Also the year I graduated with my bachelor's. And while in law enforcement with the Tulsa Police Department, I went back to get my master's and eventually started pursuing my doctorate in educational leadership, higher ed and educational leadership.
So when did you start your doctorate here?
I started my doctorate in I believe it was either 2011. I think it's 2011. 2011, yes, because I defended in 2018. Track and field was big to me growing up as a young man, and then carrying it over to college, and it also led into community. So I have now a Junior Olympic track program, track club, and this is my 26th season. I have amazing parents, amazing coaches, amazing kids that come and join us. Some have went on to do great things, Air Force Academy, to college graduates, to parents now, and their kids are coming back to run or they're coaching with me. Serving in Tulsa Police Department was a great experience. After retiring from the Tulsa Police Department.
How long were you with the police department?
Yeah, so 22 and a half years with the Tulsa Police Department, and then I moved over to Tulsa Public Schools Police Department and then became the chief of police, and since retired from there. So total law enforcement, 34 years.
Wow.
Yes.
So there's so much we could talk about. I want to go back to growing up with, you had 8 siblings, 9 of you total.
Yes.
every time I meet somebody who comes from a large family, it's really interesting to me. It seems like, not to stereotype, but it seems like with all those kids, either you're close to just a few of them or you don't know any of them that well. What is the family dynamic like with 9 of you?
Oh, I love this question. I
Yeah.
do believe there's a sense of hierarchy.
Yeah.
As my oldest brother, Monty, we we all have honor towards him, and we know our older brothers took care of the younger brothers, so the older brothers and my mom were everybody's still in contact. So, but there is hierarchy,
Yes.
hierarchy of respect, which is the way mom and dad raised us. And I will say this: we have a group text of all the brothers. We talk almost daily or chat. Something comes up in our group text. We also have a large group text that includes mom and the cousins. There's another group text that includes just multiple personnel from the family. So we have different group texts going, but as a family, we connect every day, and we're around the country. So,
Did anybody else make their way to Tulsa or anywhere near here?
I have a brother actually in Oklahoma City.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, nice. And the perspective growing up with 9 kids, one of the other stereotypes is in a big family that personal needs, whether they're mental health, distress, loneliness, or anything else, sometimes you would think like there'd be that much more support, but I always hear varying stories of families growing up. Like, how did individual distress or challenges get related to in a large family, and were there any differences when something came up with that many people compared to if you were in a smaller family?
Oh, that's a great question. So, and I can only speak from my experience
Sure.
in upbringing. Then I can speak from another lens in my law enforcement and community engagement. So first is family. My experience when it comes to emotional, mental health, we had so many of us to brush off of, right? And if there was an issue, and I use myself as an example, if there's something that I'm agitated about something and I don't know why, I can actually have a model somewhere in my family, because especially being the younger sibling, I have a model somewhere among my brothers and my dad and my mom on what I'm experiencing how can I relay that to my next step? So I had a model, right?
Yeah.
And even if I didn't understand the model, I had a couple brothers that they would get right into it, and they see something they didn't like going on in my mind or my actions, my behaviors, they put me to the side and check me, right? But I will say this: it was not a common conversation.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't something that we would talk about, and it's something that whether we had emotional or mental health challenges, it just wasn't a conversation. But what we did have was support to address and talk to each other. Right. So I can't say we will go to a therapist here, we'll go to a professional help there. Professional help I remember having was a speech pathologist, because as a kid, I just had a problem verbalizing. But for mental, emotional health, we were always around community, doing something around each other as family, or sports, church. So it was a constant ecological system for us to have support somewhere sometime.
How many of your siblings, when you left Ohio, how many of them were still there? Were you the first to bounce? How did that sort of collective shift as you moved to Tulsa?
Sure. So I definitely wasn't the first. I look at my older brothers. The first one went to college, not out of Ohio, but he went to Allison College back then, National University now. My brother Marty, military, college and military. Mackay, fashion designer. So everybody moved at some point. My brother Mike, number 4. By the way, we go by numbers sometimes.
Love it. Mike number 4. That way there could be 2 Mike number 4 and Mike number 7.
No, we're all different.
Okay.
But everybody
Right.
begin with the letter M, though.
And
Everybody.
it prevents just saying, hey, you.
Right.
Yeah, right. You can call by the number.
We go by the numbers.
Yes.
So I'll text number 5 as number 5. What you got? What you doing today?
Right. That's great.
But no, it was a collective effort of staying busy, working through, and being available. Now, as it pertains to my career, I'll say when I was in law enforcement, and even with Tulsa Police Department and or with the school district, I'm engaged with young people, families it would often be actually hurtful to know that we have children that are falling through the gap that we want to help, right? And then when you hear people make comments, not in the school district, I'm just about
Right.
general. You may hear people say things like a one blanket answer. Well, if the parents were doing this, well, if the parents were doing that, if the parents were better at this, sometimes that's not the accurate answer. Because sometimes our families and our parents have also challenging issues that may not know what steps to take. But what I've learned in my career is that parents really love their children.
Yes, they do.
And they want the best for them. And the last thing they need to hear is anybody really tagging onto them like, well, if you would do this better, then this would happen. If you do
Yeah.
this better, then this would happen. And sometimes it's just not the case. Our families and our parents love their children and they want to be successful parents. So it's important that we continue to be provide resources, not as a checklist,
Yeah.
but be legitimate in what type of way we're supporting our families.
Did you decide, I want my career to be in law enforcement, or did one thing lead to another? How did you end up in law enforcement from the beginning? How'd you arrive at that decision?
I would never have thought I'd be in law enforcement. It was just not one of the things that crossed my mind.
Sure.
As a young person, I was going to be a professional athlete. I was going to go to the Olympics. Out of high school, I thought I was going to be a movie and film producer. I studied a little bit of film and production in school. But a buddy of mine who's at Oral Roberts with me as well, who's great. That's great now. He's retired from TPD. But when he got on the police department, his first year, his words to me were, man, you need to think about this. We need some more black officers. And my first thought was, and I had negative thoughts growing up
Yeah.
outside of about town and where I grew up about police officers. It wasn't just me, and what that is a bad town, but just my image of law enforcement was not a positive mindset. We can't think of any personal problems, just where I grew up around,
Sure.
right? But I remember my question to him was, man, but don't police officers get attacked at intersections? And so I guess I respond to what I saw in movies.
Yeah.
And his response was so incredible. He goes, you won't know until you get there and what it's about. And I have to say, that inspired me.
Yes.
Because I wanted to be needed, right? I wanted to do something that was legitimate and fruitful and accomplishing. And to me, that was. Went through a long process to be hired. And I can say that today, now that I'm retired from the profession, I can honestly say I thank God for that opportunity to be a police officer. And that is because you can see the best at the worst and worst at their best and still can never judge them.
What have you learned about, so you 32 years?
34.
34 years.
Yes.
What perspectives, so, law enforcement, even the word enforcement, right? It's got a strong connotation, and yet it's clear that your career and your perspectives, and then even leaning into like the youth side of that, doing it within the schools, there's got to be a lot of perspectives you have on people in systems and how they find well-being and how they find safety. How has law enforcement influenced your lens on how you see people and their needs for structure and organization and well-being? Because, enforcement is like, it's sort of force is in the word, but I would guess that a lot of what you did had nothing to do with force. It was about support. It was about so many other things.
Yeah, I like that question too, because the term enforcement and force are relative to this conversation. And I think at least in my evolution of law enforcement is, to me, is not always a negative connotation. I can see enforcement as providing, enforcing sense of safety, enforcing a sense of security, belonging. But there's the practice side of enforcement. Then there's the community engagement. And I believe enforcement is not always tangible. I think sometimes law enforcement is presence, and it doesn't have to be negative or a negative base, right? Deficit base. I believe enforcement can be re-imaged and re-messaged in a positive format.
Yeah.
And that means presence. And when someone sees an officer in uniform, that should relate to a relationship. That should relate to conversation. That should relate to, hey, just in contact, just checking in. Everything doesn't have to be a negative base. And there are times there's negative contact. with law
Yeah.
enforcement community. That does exist, but I just don't believe all the enforcement is or has to be a negative contact.
And there's times where to call it tension states within law enforcement, especially in the black community, tension states is understating it, right? I mean, like
Right.
there's been all out, you name it, everything from misunderstanding to conflict
Right.
to injustice.
Yes.
And when you look at all those things, and you also say, but you spent your career trying to establish bridges of trust and trying to be part of that. Is there a path back to law enforcement being a trusted part of society broadly and within the black community? Is there a path back to that?
Oh, I definitely believe so. I believe so, and that really takes who's sitting at the table that can actually make those actions happen. And what I mean by this is sometimes we put people at the table because they're friends or because we like them, and sometimes just because they're friends because we like them, that don't mean they belong at the table, right?
Say that again, because I want to make sure that registers, and I almost understood it. Say
Sure,
it again.
sure.
One
So
more time.
when it's time for a big initiative or big project, particularly in our conversation here, sometimes we can put people at our table. Sometimes we can put people at the table of conversation that are friends or people we like. But those aren't necessarily the people that belong at the table. That don't mean they don't belong in a conversation, but maybe not at the table of decision making, right? And I think we make mistakes sometimes by putting who we like in there. Not saying who we like is always going to be wrong.
Who we already trust instead of who we need to develop
Have a
trust
need
with.
exactly.
Yes.
Is it what are we cultivating at this table? Because if the goal, the mission, the vision is here, then we need to make sure we have people that can move towards that vision. So, and again, that's not to say we don't put our friends in. I'm not saying that. It's just that sometimes we put the friend in when it should be a person that's actually a mountain mover. I had this conversation with my kids recently that it's okay that we have in our lives spectators and we have cheerleaders. And if we look at, because when we're in a life of competition, we are in the stands. We hear people cheering for us and cheering against us. I'm okay with both of them because guess what? It means I'm still in the game,
Right,
right?
right.
But sometimes there's some people in our lives that are just spectators, and that's okay to play that role. Let's concentrate on those who are our cheerleaders and that those who can actually move it. Because we sometimes, even as we grow up, I've done the same thing. I put people around in my life boardroom, people who I think who like me and I like them. But some of them have not always told me the truth.
Right.
Right. And there are some who can just stop at the conversation piece. And there's some that will say, you know what, we're talking about it now, but here go the actions we need to make happen. And then there's some who say, I can actually have a contact for you who can actually create the network. So as relate to this conversation we're having, we have to put people at our table. If we're going to see this change, put executives, put leaders, and it don't have to be all executives, but put people in that are mountain movers, that are decision makers at the table in their organizations. Because sometimes there's at least in my experience, there's been a loss of communication when you have the wrong person at the table or a person at the table that cannot make a decision.
Bobby, I'm hearing with your, I'm hearing that you're right in this conversation. I just want to invite you into the conversation because we're talking about trust, we're talking about law enforcement, we're talking about community. Of course, this is all going to have bearing on mental health and well-being, and I want to talk about that in a minute. But what are your thoughts as you're hearing this conversation right now?
I totally agree with putting people at the table who know what they're doing. For one, they got to know what they're doing. When you grab these people and put them at the table, so they got to have a background of knowledge and information that they can bring to the table to able to move you forward. Because a lot of times you can bring a family member into during the grieving process, a family member into it, and they're so emotional and you just can't bring them into the table properly. You want to include them, but you have to bring those family members who can talk the conversation, who can get some things done. And so if you got Joe over here and he's your brother, or you got Sally over here who is your sister, and they're dysfunctional and you know they're dysfunctional, and if they come to the table, they come in with a bottle of liquor, or they come in with and all of that, it's going to be very disturbing. So you have to have someone who can lead, for one, somebody who has a figurehead that can lead,
and that people will follow.
Then that people will follow. They got to have somebody who can follow them, because they may want to follow Joe, who's an alcoholic, you know what I mean, who's been talking all that yakety yak, but you got to be able to find that space, especially during the grieving processes, like what I'm going through right now, of being able to have family members who can come in.
So I want to, you brought up something else I want to talk about, and I want to come back to this. So I want to put a pin in this for a second, because Matthias, you talked about a year ago you lost your father.
Correct.
And you've recently lost your father, who was also a pillar of this community. And I mean, it was a very public loss for the community. I've lost a parent, it's been some years ago.
Boy.
And when you think about loss and grief, we've talked on this show before about grief, but one of the things I want to kind of enter into the conversation is the losses that reverberate in more than just this human I'm attached to is gone, but the impact that they had or have. What is the impact of the grief y'all are going through right now, a year later, and then very fresh? And then how do you expect it to change or morph over time? Kind of an open-ended question.
Well, for me, we just had my dad's memorial service 2 weeks ago. And I have 4 siblings. 2 live in Houston, and me and my sister lives here in Tulsa. And I just got bombarded, being the male here in Houston, Texas, by the media, by all these people, the mayor, everybody, just coming at Bobby Eaton Jr. And it really made me realize how iconic my dad was, and that he had touched so many people throughout the 60s and the 70s during the civil rights movement and Black Wall Street, Greenwood, and all of that stuff. I knew of it, but I didn't know how at that level it was. Not just here in Tulsa, but in other communities around the United States. I mean, he got proclamations from everybody, and everything started just pouring in. And it poured down on me, being his son. And so I had to evaluate that and grieve at the same time.
And it strikes me that, as sons and daughters, we spend our life wanting to be seen and understood by our parents. And then what a reversal to say, now in loss, I'm seeing him in ways that I never, now I see him in ways that you didn't see at the time.
Well, I seen him in a big light. While he was living, I just kind of followed him, seeing him in this big light. Yeah, that's Pops talking that talk and walking that walk, being the first African American man to get arrested here in Tulsa, to go to jail for protesting back in those days. And I'm saying to myself, well, my dad did a lot, but also there was some things that people don't know about my dad. They just don't know. They just see that kind of stuff right there. There's a family side that they don't know about, that you got to deal with some mental issues and some things that me and my brothers and sisters and family had to go through with my dad being in that position, that came with those activists and people of that era, and I'm understanding a lot of it now. Why did it happen that way? But I'm understanding a lot of it now. And, when you lose someone like that, then you gotta, deal with his stuff, his home, his cars, his everything, his property he owned and everything. And so you and your siblings gotta get together and figure it all out. It's going to probate, and let the judge decide on what to do with all of this.
It's
stuff.
hard. It's hard work to die.
Man, it's hard work to die, man, especially if you die and you don't have everything in order and in place.
Yeah.
When you don't have it on paper and ain't notarized and all of that stuff, and my dad didn't care. My dad worked for himself. He never did work for nobody else. I never knew him to have a job. He worked for Bobby Eaton Sr. all his life. He paid for all his stuff all himself. He was his own. He was self-made like my grandfather. They were self-made. Eatons are basically self-made people.
Right.
Now, I got the radio station right here. This is mine. I'm doing my stuff too. So, with that being said, and I'm going to turn it back over to y'all.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
thank you for sharing, and I want to keep the conversation alive. But it's been a year. How is the loss different now than it was a year ago, Matthias?
So I still find myself navigating through that. But one thing I started to get back to my journaling and writing to help me kind of process where I emotionally, mentally land in this grief. And one of the places I believe I've come to recently, from the time it happened to the first year, is it really allowed me to go back and reflect on all the messaging during the eulogy, right? And I've known it before the eulogy, but I find myself going through some of my challenges today. What would my dad have done? And I say that to say this, knowing that at the age of 4, I believe it was age of 4, his dad passed away, mom passed away. At the age of 6, his dad first at 4, mom passed away at 6, or vice versa, excuse me. Mom first, then dad passed away. Then he was separated from his siblings. So he grew up in an orphan, back in the 30s, he's born in the 30s. So back in those days, just imagine what orphanages looked like, right? And then he would go to foster homes. He would go to foster homes where he was abused. My mom tells a story, tied to the telephone pole front and beat in public, right? Became a juvenile delinquent at times, right? Then he got a hold of sports, and then for him to, instead of going down that trail where it could have been actually worse, because he would have had every excuse, like, I don't care about life. This is what happened to me, but he didn't, right? He ended up going to school. He dropped out of school, but then he raised a family of 9 boys. He actually took his last breath in the house he built for the family.
Wow.
He took his last breath in the house he built. 2 other guys, brick to brick. And so what that tells me today is that, okay, I have other grieving issues that I deal with, but man, Dad didn't make any excuses. He just did it, right? So I find myself riding my motorcycle sometimes, like my dad would ride his motorcycle. I find myself learning the bass, like I was telling you, because my dad was a musician, and I think about these things like, why would Dad do all this? Because he was finding peace within himself. So that's me learning the younger Dad that I didn't know.
Yes.
Tells me who I am today and what I can do for sure.
And when I listen to both of your perspectives, it strikes me that, Bobby, what you're going through right now, that is the acute phase of grief, right? That is, it's fresh, I'm in it, I'm dealing with everything from logistics and paperwork to that every family member has their own way of dealing with this right now, and it creates its own sort of drama for a minute. All this stuff happens, and it's acute, and then you fast forward a year later, and I think that some of the most intriguing aspects of grief are the things that take hold of us months and years down the road when we say, I haven't even thought about this in a long time, and yet I am still living with proximity to this person who's not with me anymore. They're affecting my identity. There are days when I'll tell you what, I lost my mother in 2015, and when I find milestones in my life now, it will hit me sometimes. Yes. I don't get to share that with her, and I bet she'd be proud, or something like that.
Yes.
And I think that, like, that was 11 years ago, and I don't think about her most days, and I haven't shed a tear in a long time. Right. But the loss and what it means way later, to me, is where it gets really intriguing, because, like, I'm not dismissing the grief you're in right now, Bobby, but the grief you're in right now, you're in the thick of it. This is what everybody goes through when they lose somebody, And then comes this point in time where you flip the page.
I know.
You've moved on. And that's when it gets really fascinating, because what am I defining now? And what am I thinking?
The meaning of.
And how have I changed as a result of this thing that now is like a ring on the tree of a season that was weathered or a forest fire that hit?
Yeah.
And then you look back and like, what is it when it all kind of like the soup has crusted over and now I'm somebody different?
You know, my mother passed away in 18.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at right now with her passing. But my dad is just here recent.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of going through that transition period till I can get to feeling about my dad the way I feel about my mother's passing. So,
Yeah.
you know, I'm in that space that you said, you know, just like you talked about.
Yeah.
One of my first mentors in the mental health field, his special lens was grief, and he used to ask me this. Anything I talked about, it wasn't just about people, but anything I talked about, he'd ask me this question that he used so often that sometimes I'm like, is this a one-trick pony? And it wasn't. He was very wise, but he would just say, Adam, what have you lost? And it was about anything, any topic, anything. And I'd be, what have you lost? That is not a question I think that we put our finger on that often, but whether it is people or things or opportunities, or even sometimes good things happen. And when good things happen, we don't always feel good, right? Because of the things that we had to exchange to get that opportunity. And I think that what have you lost is a really poignant question, even as it's so open-ended. Because what have you lost? If I asked you that question today about your dad, Bobby, and if I asked you that question in 5 years, the answer is going to be way more complex than it is right now, because it's so different. It changes. What I have lost in the loss of my mother in 2015 is still developing. It's not done.
Wow. Okay, that was pretty loaded.
Yeah.
That was pretty
Yeah,
loaded.
that was loaded.
That was
Well,
loaded.
what are you thinking?
I do appreciate you saying how it's still developing, and that's really says my story a year later, because I think there's more to it, right? And I could say this: what I am learning is how to realize that I am resilient.
Yes.
Remember that I'm resilient, and I have an example. My dad, who went through all this as a little boy, to him actually taking the last breath in the house he built, he can only have done that if he had grit. You talk about grit, grace,
yeah.
resilience, and all these things. It means I have a model, and guess what? I'm still learning what that means.
So you're also bringing the positive spin on this, which
Yes.
is it's not just about what I've lost.
What
It's
I'm
that,
gaining.
and I'm going to attach it to, yes, it's about what am I gaining, but it also is that everything creative in life follows, like in art, they talk about negative space is so important for creativity. And I do think that the losses in life probably are what open the door for the gains we make, because without a subtraction, what room is there for addition? And that's kind of my take on this, Matthias, is that like you lost your dad a year ago, and that changed a lot of things. You lost a lot of things, but without that loss, what other things are there now? Is there now room to add or to gain? Because you're talking about I'm gaining resilience because this loss, now I had to adapt to that. And so it's adding something. That's kind of what I'm taking from this.
Yes, and yes, you're actually very accurate on that part. And I'm thinking about that first part of the question again. What have I lost? I lost. Oh, here you go. Yeah, I lost who I would consider my hero. That's what I've lost.
Yes.
Then the spin off on that one is what would he have expected of me now? With my kids, what would be his grandkids? Well, what would my dad expect now, right? So what I lost is my hero, my model
Yes.
of resilience. That's what I was getting to. I lost my model of grit, great resilience, recovery, gratitude, all that, right? But it's my responsibility now to carry that on to my kids.
I want to add one other wrinkle that's so profound what you just said, Matthias. I want to add one other wrinkle in this, and then maybe we can take a break and pick us back up. But I heard a presentation years ago. It was Joseph Campbell, who talked a lot about myth and history, and he made this amazing point that until the last 100 or so years, most sons and daughters' parents were dead by the time they were in their 30s. And so what quickly happened is you were metaphorically entering a forest alone by your 30s, which is why it became so important to have the ancestors, if you will, before you as that collection of wisdom, because that's the only way you're not entering that forest alone. Is, yes, your actual parents are gone by the time you're 30, but that collection of elders and ancestors before us become part of how we say, I don't go there alone. And now you fast forward now, what a lovely thing that we live so long, but most of us were adults alongside our parents for decades.
Right.
Decades. And that has utterly changed our proximity to our elders, but it has also changed the way we journey. And so many of us right now, I didn't have to face the loss of my mother until I was in my late 30s. And you all have lost your father pretty late in life.
Right.
And so in many ways, you're entering that forest at a totally different time than has ever been true in human history.
Wow.
And what is
That
the
is
effect?
so.
I'm gonna have to ponder on that one for a
great,
minute.
yeah, me too. I got to think about that.
Yeah.
Well, let's think about it for a minute, take a break, and we'll pick back up on the other side.
Okay.
All right.
Tulsa, your voice matters. And on KBOB 89.9 FM, your stories are heard loud and clear. From community issues to culture, music, and real-life conversations, this is where we come together. Be part of something bigger. Tune in to KBOB 89.9 FM, Tulsa's voice, by the people, for the people.
Hey, Tulsa! Do you have something to say that everyone needs to hear? Have you ever thought about starting your own radio show podcast? If so, I have the answer. You need to be down here at KBOB 89.9 FM. You can reach us at 832-443-9499 or go to our website at kbob899.com. You will be streamed on all the platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and even YouTube. Get your message out. We need to hear what you've got to say. Give us a call today. That's 832-443-9499. We'll be waiting.
Family and Children's Services and Morton Health Services are excited to announce our new location at 240 East Apache is now open. We're bringing mental and medical health services together, all under one roof. We can help with transportation to the clinic and with center care enrollment. Offices are open from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and walk-ins are welcome. So come by in person or call to make an appointment at 918-587-9471. Your next step is to be here.
Sound familiar? Well, guess what? Sounds like you need The Last Stop Shop. The only name you need to know. The Last Stop Shop. Tulsa area's #1 mobile mechanic service. And they come to you. They get you running or stopping again. From brakes to starters, alternators, generator, RV, even welding repair. They also do mobile fleet maintenance and mobile oil changes. Like I told you, this will be the last stop you ever make. Call The Last Stop Shop. Tulsa area's #1 mobile mechanic service at 918-405-3970. That's 918-405-3970, and they'll have you back up and running in no time. Mention you heard this ad on KBOB 89.9 and receive 10% off your first service. Who you gonna call? The Last Stop Shop. Tulsa area's #1 mobile mechanic service. That number again is 918-405-3970. This is KBOB 89.9 FM, Tulsa. And now streaming 24/7 live from the Eden Media Studio. 24/7 live at KBOB899.com.
So welcome back. We've been talking with Dr. Matthias Wicks, and of course, Bobby, we love it every time you're part of this conversation. And we've been talking about grief, and I want to get to the mental health part of this. I think grief and loss is a part of all of this. But let's finish tying off some of the grief and loss stuff. You know, we're talking about how we are now living in a time when our ancestors are still walking among us. There are parents who are still living, and our grandparents are still living. My 92-year-old grandmother lives in our house right now.
Wow.
You know, I mean, like, it's just, and it's lovely, but it is a complete change in society.
Oh, that's a blessing.
It is.
Yes.
And what I'm sitting here thinking about is society's moving at such a breakneck speed. We don't really have time. We don't really have time to grieve anything that's moving. Like, think about when we were children till now. The things that we're seeing now is like what you used to watch on the Jetsons, right? I mean, it is.
My goodness.
It's like magic all around us.
Right.
And as much as we're making advances, and look what we can do with AI, and look what we can do with our smart cards, and look at things have moved so fast. I sometimes wonder about our well-being from a standpoint of how do we keep up, and do we ever go back and take stock of what we have lost? And I could just kind of want to throw that out there for reflections, because society's moving fast. Right. And I think there's a certain grief process that maybe gets skipped in how we adapt collectively to changes in society. Some of them good, some of them bad, but they're all changing.
Yeah, see, that makes me wonder, just that, it makes me ponder on this here. If, how many children, parents, ourselves, just don't feel or don't believe we have the space and time to grieve, right?
Because or even what it's like, because you're supposed to grieve the right way.
You're supposed to grieve the right way, and there's the phases of it. And you're right. I wonder how often we come across situations where we're addressing an issue with somebody, whether it's in a family or in a community, and we haven't taken stock that person actually could have not completed their grieving process. They're still grieving.
Yes.
And then we add an external stressor to it again. Right. So, yeah.
And so let's tie it. We're going to make it could feel like an abrupt shift, but let's talk about this. This is the month when we put a special focus on men's mental health. Right. Okay. And I can think in my lifetime, and it's common knowledge, the goalposts of what a man should be in society have changed dramatically in my lifetime. And you could probably go back all the way back to World War II when it really started shifting, when men went away to war, women entered the workforce. All of it is progress, but how men find their way now in 2026, it's calling for its own resilience, its own grief, its own. And Matthias, you mentioned on the break a little bit about your journey with mental health, and you mentioned specifically as a man, that journey. And I wonder if you could just kind of like share your wisdom, your experiences, your reflections on this, kind of an open-ended question again.
Sure.
Men's mental health as it relates to all the things we're talking about.
Yes, thank you for asking that. And I made to speak on a couple ends. I'm a life coach. I do life coaching for men. Also have, I've had challenges of, I know people hear the word mental health and they think something's mentally wrong with you, right? But I've learned to see that word a little differently. Men just tend not to believe they have the safe space to address things, right? So in my practice with a life coach and even in my own experience and my own losses, it wasn't until I got in my 50s that I realized I made one of the greatest decisions I've made. And that was in my 50s that I decided. It took me 2 years to do it, to find it, but to actually have a therapist. And that was probably it was one of the greatest decisions I could have made for myself. And it took me a while to do it.
What was so hard about getting to that?
Definitely how I thought that I need to work this thing out myself.
The stigma of I'm supposed to
There's
do
a
it
stigma.
myself.
Work it out myself. I don't want to see somebody that I see that sees me walking into an office to go talk to someone. I want this person not to bring my name up to any. I mean, there's a lot of internal. It was more internal fights than anything. That probably caused me stress thinking about why not.
So what got you over the hump? What got you saying, okay, I'm going to do it?
That was it. I'm just going to do it. That was
wasn't
it.
Some moment of it, sometimes people like, I'm really under pressure. I'm really feeling something. It was just someday you woke up.
It was just, I'm tired. I was actually tired, sick and tired of being tired of talking about it. Right. It was just one of those things like pushing a bird when a bird needs to fly. Push them off the branch.
Well, what created the urge? Because that urge, however long it was there, you had some sort of driver urge to get into therapy. What caused that?
Honestly, it was not a one particular issue. I think I had enough challenges. Again, different losses I was experiencing. It was just so many different losses, and they were compiling. right? And I didn't definitely didn't feel I had a mental issue. I didn't feel that at all.
Yeah.
It was just more so about, man, I got hurt, some pains over here, I got some challenges over here, and no one's understanding me right now.
And just pause
No
that
one's
for a
getting
second.
me.
I mean, think about the stigma of this for a second. If you went for an annual physical and people would be like, Matthias, why are you going for that physical? What's wrong with you? No one would be like that.
It's
They'd be like,
just
you
a
go,
physical.
it's a checkup,
It's
right?
a checkup, yes.
It's how you doing? And then if they said, well, guess what? Your back's sore. We're going to get you some physical therapy. Who's going to be like, what the heck are you doing? Why are you doing physical therapy? Is there something wrong with your back?
Right.
And then mental health.
Right.
You know, like you go to therapy, you work things out. Do you get restoring range of motion for ourselves emotionally and psychologically? It's so obvious, but anyway. keep
It
going.
was a
Yeah.
self audit. I did a self audit, just self inventory. I was missing, especially if I'm saying things to myself like no one's. And I'm gonna say no one.
Yeah.
I'll just say I deal with the issue of I'm experiencing issues where I sense those who I believe are closest to me are not understanding me, are not getting me.
Oh boy.
Right. So
What was that, Bobby? What was that? Talk to me here.
Well, a lot of times during discussion and when we're talking to family members, they may not be understanding what you're actually saying to them, and you have to break it down. And, oh, you just trying to get some money. You just, no, wait a minute. I'm not just trying to get Pop's money. It's not all about his money. It's about his legacy and what he's all about that I'm trying to work on. Oh, you ain't trying to do that. You got members like that may come, at least in my family,
Yes.
because it's hard to be a Eaton. You know what I mean? That Eaton family is like, whoa. So, it's like, trying to get understanding, true, real understanding, which can be sometimes difficult during the grieving process or even years after, just getting that understanding.
And I think part of the challenge of grieving in relationships and family dynamics is oftentimes we say things to people because of the changes we want them to make.
Right.
But, I had a therapist trainer, a psychologist who was my supervisor, who was teaching us in counseling to say, you don't help your clients figure out how to say the right things to their parents or loved one to get them to change. You help them strategize how to say the things they feel like they need to say. Because we're not, our family, all of us want to fix our family, and guess what? It's going to take more than a day. It's not happening.
right.
It's not
Right.
happening.
But if we could figure out how to say, what are the things I need to say that don't require someone else to make an adjustment, because I'm just going to have to accept they are who they are.
Right.
I'm not going to change them, nor is it my job or even right to change them. But what is it I need to say? What is it I need to communicate for myself? Or are there things that I don't need to communicate? I just let them go. And I'm coming back to you, Matthias. When you got into counseling, what was the most immediate positive effect? And what surprised you most about the process?
I think I can answer the latter part first. What surprised me is that I expected a certain mindset of the professional help, and I was just completely wrong. That person was there to listen. That person was there. They weren't there to give me answers. Well,
You thought it'd be a technician. Oh, here's your problem. Let's make that change.
and that's
Yeah.
what I avoided because I don't want somebody to tell me how to live my life. I don't
Yeah.
want that. But that's what I thought it was, right? I thought I knew what I was going into.
Yeah.
Right. And then it surprised me, like, no, this person is actually trying to listen. And the greatest experience was that person explaining to me, you have the answers inside you. I'm just helping you to bring it out.
That's great.
That was profound to me.
Yeah.
Like, you have it in you already. Let's talk to get it out of you, because it's there.
And of
Right.
course, if you had come to them and said, "I need more nuts and bolts guidance," you would have found it. You could have found a
Absolutely.
counselor that wanted that.
Absolutely.
But you were there. Maybe if you didn't even realize it at the time, but you really needed someone to journey with you.
That's
You needed someone
thought
alongside
partner.
you.
I need a thought partner.
A thought partner.
And that's what that person was. So
Yeah.
it wasn't me having a mental problem.
yeah.
I did feel alone in a lot of spaces.
Yeah.
Even though I'm working, always taking care of this, I didn't see
Yeah.
life taking care of me back. So having a thought partner was what I was looking for.
I mean,
And
my
that was-
gosh, there's so many ways we could go with this, and I want to have a much longer conversation, but I'm going to risk one more deviation back to the conversation we started with about law enforcement, because everything that, I mean, I feel like I'm getting to know you with a mic in front of us. It's so fun. And
Likewise, thank you.
You got to a point in time with therapy, counseling, support that you felt able to engage with yourself and others in a different way. Broadly true.
Yes.
And now you're in law enforcement, and at some point you started working more with young people.
Yes.
And whether you're in law enforcement or counseling or life coaching, trust is the bedrock of society, of relationship, it's the one thing that could sort us between are we working or are we not. If I trust you, we're working, and if I don't, we're not. Fair enough?
Right.
So talk to me about how you have brought all that training and that life experience into engaging with young people, because if we're ever going to have trust with either elders and youth or law enforcement and young people, all those things sort of overlay. How have you built trust within your career, leveraging all these things that you've learned about mental health and yourself?
Sure. Oh, that's such a great question. And I like this conversation. I have to first and foremost say it's personal to me, because I have to remember that I was also a youth. And I had to ask myself, what did I want as a youth? I wanted adults to believe me. I want adults to trust me that I am. I want adults to believe that I was a good person, because growing up, I know I was not a bad kid. I made some decisions, but I wasn't bad. But I would have believed I could be bad sometime. Right? So I just negative self-beliefs, I think it was, I was dealing with as a young kid. And I believe teenagers deal with negative self-beliefs too. But what did I want as a young person? For somebody outside of my family. Because I know family is supposed to do it, right? But I wanted somebody who was not in the family to believe in me.
Yes.
And to trust me. Trust me to make a good decision. And I know, because I knew that's what I wanted, I need to be there for young people. Be that adult that believes in them. And they will know. They'll know. A young person knows when an adult believes in them or not.
So I'm midway through this book. It was real famous in 2023, called The Anxious Generation.
Yes.
And it's all about what's happened to young people as we have raised them. Instead of saying, you're free to go play, we've protected them from the wrong thing, because we thought that the streets and their world weren't safe, but instead we set them loose, a whole generation on the internet, where they didn't have friends, and they didn't get to go make mistakes and settle spats themselves.
Yes.
And instead they looked in on their screens. And if you fast forward now to young people, what we're actually seeing is exactly what you said. They don't trust themselves, much less each other, because they don't feel capable of anything. They've got adults looking over their shoulder at every step. They're not allowed to argue without being broken up. They're not allowed to go try things. They're not allowed to get in trouble. They're not allowed to take risks. And as a result, the single biggest thing we've done to young people is over-controlled them.
Yes.
And I think that that's part of this picture here is, like, we talk about law enforcement. Law enforcement is more than a designation of it's that how we as society, as elders, are encouraging young people to find freedom and to take risks and even make mistakes. I think we've gone too far in the direction of over-controlling. And I think that's part of, if we want a path back to strong mental health for young people, we're going to have to find a way of letting go a little bit.
Yes. And get out the way sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to get out
start
the way.
letting young people do some things. Let them make mistakes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, we're so worried about social media. Parents, I'm talking
Yes.
more or less, like, and AI and all this, which they know it. The kids know it. The parents and the older adults really don't know it like the kids do.
We can't protect them from it anyway, because they know it better than us.
And it's not going away.
Yeah.
See, that's the whole thing. Is we don't know how to control it. It's not going away, but we don't really want our children to use it. but it's not going away.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can really do about it but educate your kid how to use it in a good way. Because it's a lot of bad on the internet now. I mean, you got kids watching porno. The suicide rate is going up high. You got perverts on the internet talking to your children and things like that.
And that's kind of the point, Bobby, is that most of the danger is not about if I go ride my bike up and down the street and get in a spat with the neighbor kid. Most of the danger is on the internet. And there's also the danger that I don't learn this relationship skills of conflict resolution, all those things that happen. And I think that's where it's like, this book, it's such a great book, but he talks in there about how we've got to change our laws where, parents of 10 and 11-year-olds don't go to jail if they're not watching their kids at all time. Kids need to be out and playing and figuring things out. As part of that, that's their path to mental health strength and being confident.
That bicycle riding in the neighborhood, drinking out of the water hose, you know what I mean? Throwing the football in the front yard, playing basketball at the neighborhood.
Race between light poles.
Light poles or light poles. See who's fastest in the neighborhood.
Right.
Come on, man.
It's so true that we're afraid of the wrong thing. And there is I'm going to try not to summarize the whole book, but one of the things he talks about is there's a few schools that have seen huge gains in their mental health outcomes, and they've done two things. They've said your phone goes into a bag at the start of the day. Yes. You don't even get it in between classes. No more phones at school, number one. And number two, free play where the adults are only watching you to prevent emergencies.
Yes.
And if you get in a spat, if you figure it out, free play and no phones, and guess what? Kiddos are coming right back, and they're figuring out resilience, and they're figuring out how to communicate, and they're going to be growing into confident adults. Of those.
Yeah, I noticed something real serious over the weekend at Legacy Fest. Mm-hmm. They had the big stage where Fantasia was performing. Mm-hmm. Then they had a smaller stage over there at the Cultural Center, and they invited my program over there to host that stage. And my youth came over there, about 5 of them. They came over there, and don't you know they were so afraid. I said, go, you guys are the host. You got to be introducing these DJs and drummers and singers and stuff. And they were so afraid to just get out there in front of these people and just talk on the microphone. Yeah. Hey, next up we got Johnny, he playing the so-and-so, And I said, go ahead. No. They were in the back. No, Mr. Bobby, no. I'm saying, well, why did you even come if you're not going to get out here and do that? Their social skills, man, are rough. And I don't know what we're going to be able to do to get them, not just with my kids, but in general.
So I'm going to close with this. I can sound really bleak sometimes, so I'm going to close with a positive note here and then maybe give you the last word, Matthias. Young people are figuring this out. They've pulled back from social media themselves. The reality was a few years ago, young people started reading all the stats, and they went off of some of the big platforms. And if you watch now, all the, there's so much written about how social media has been especially bad for the mental health of young teenage females. But you look on social media now, there's not near as many of this polished, overdone, unrealistic pictures of women. Why? Because they've all pulled back and got authentic and been like, if they see a really polished somebody putting fish lips in front of the camera, they think it's AI now. So what's happening is while we're all getting scammed as we get older and falling prey to the internet, young people have grown up about it enough. They're actually getting really good at sorting and being less. They don't like advertisers looking over their shoulder all the time, and they don't like these unrealistic images put in front of them. So in some ways, I think the young people, we created the mess for them, but the young people, they're starting to figure this out. And I do still have some confidence in them sorting it out.
Yes, absolutely.
But we're going to have to be patient because we have thrown a lot at them in society.
Way. Yes, we
have.
Yeah, we have.
Well, what a great. I know I went overtime here, but it's been a great conversation. Yeah, as long as I keep asking you questions, Bobby, we keep going. Matthias, I want